Hello friends. So today's video is essentially going to be my December TBR, or books that I'm hoping to read before the end of the year, because we're already there basically, which is terrifying. But I'm also going to mention some plans I have going into January as well. Initially, I wasn't planning on making a December TBR. I wanted a lot of December to be catching up on books that I had put on previous TBRs and then didn't get to. My plans slightly shifted when the Goodreads Choice Award nominees came out, because I wanted to be able to provide insight on the books that are nominated. I thought, because I've been reading so many new releases this year, that I would already have a lot of the books read and then maybe could just read a couple. But most of the books on the list are books that I haven't picked up. And so when I do my videos where I'm reviewing the books, I primarily wanted to stick to reading adult fantasy and then the young adult fantasy, although I will sprinkle in here and there something from sci-fi or fiction just to add a little bit of extra flavor. But what I'm going to be doing is reading literally everything that is not a continuation to a series that I haven't read. I'll be reading everything else that's on the adult fantasy list and the young adult list. So that's basically what my December TBR is going to be. I'm going to actually strangely start with the plans I have for January, because I don't see myself doing a January TBR. I'm just going to let you know here and now. So a couple of series that I wanted to complete. We have Age of Madness by Joe Abercrombie. That did not make the Goodreads nominations. I know a lot of you were bothered by that. I wanted to complete the Senlin series. And then also a book that didn't make the list would be The Pariah by Anthony Ryan, which I also really wanted to get to this year. And I'm just going to push those to January so I can focus on the books from the Goodreads nominations, do bulk reviews for the books on those lists, and then we'll get around to The Pariah, Senlin, and then Age of Madness in January. I had put all of those books on previous TBRs, but I was not expecting the grieving process to take so long. And I think there's extra aspects to losing a loved one that you don't really realize that you have to do, just kind of legal stuff that involves like courts, the local courts and things like that, and government, which everybody knows is super efficient, and those sorts of things, which just kind of pull at those emotions that you're trying to kind of start to get back up on your feet, and then you got to do this other stuff, which is just a reminder. And anyway, so I know that there are books that I really wanted to get to that I think a lot of you were also excited to get to, and I wanted to be able to discuss them with all of you. And I am sorry, because I don't like being that person that says I'm going to do something and then I don't. But I decided to let myself have a little bit of a break kind of around the summertime. I took basically a whole week off of uploading videos, and anyway, you all were very understanding of that, but that's why I'm kind of a little behind with certain series that I was really hoping to have already finished by now. But anyway, getting to happier things. One, mental health, emotionally, all those sorts of things, I am doing so much better. That was such a needed break, and I have been feeling so much better. I've had so much more energy. I am just excited to be filming. That's why I've had so many videos go up recently, because it almost feels like, even though I was uploading, it just feels like I hadn't been for a long time, because I was in a different mental state. I don't know if that makes any sense, but anyway, it feels like I'm back, as strange as that is to say. So jumping into it, first up, Shadow of the Gods. This is one I also wanted to read earlier in the year. It was nominated. This is a book by John Gwynne. It's kind of Viking-inspired fantasy. I'm really excited about it. There's a giant dragon on the cover. Who doesn't love that? We also have the graphic novel released by V.E. Schwab in the same world as her. I believe the series name is called Villains, or Villains, something like that. But basically vicious and vengeful. And this is a graphic novel that takes place in that world, but I believe follows a different character. So hoping to pick that up if I can today. That would be awesome. We also have Rule of Wolves and The Unbroken, two additional releases from this year that I haven't gotten around to yet that I wanted to. The Unbroken is a series starter, and then Rule of Wolves is a continuation from, it's a sequel to King of Scars, but it takes place in the Grishaverse by Leigh Bardugo. We have a Spindle Splintered, which is a really, really tiny little, I think it's a novella, and I think it's a play on Sleeping Beauty, but I think provides a lot of commentary. I don't know a whole lot about that one, but I've heard really good things. and I don't usually like things that are that short, but fingers crossed that I end up liking this one. We have Once Upon a Broken Heart. This is a book that I actually received in a Fairy Loot subscription box, so I ended up having it anyway, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but apparently there's murder and magic and romance. So that sounds fun. We also have The Chosen and the Beautiful, which is a Great Gatsby retelling. This was also kindly sent to me by the publisher. And I know my friend Joshana, she has her own channel, she loved it. It was one of her first 5-star reads of the year. We also have The Witch's Heart. Not gonna lie, when I saw The Witch's Heart, I was like, that's gonna be a Goodreads nominee. I just knew, it just had the vibe. And I don't know a whole lot about it. It's got some, I think, mythology aspects tied into it. And I think it's kind of a almost literary type of feel, a love story, but I think a tragic one. I don't know. Anyway, I wasn't sure I was in the mood for that, but I was right. It did end up on the nominations list, and I bought it because I bought it a while ago because I'm like, I bet this will end up. And also, every now and then I'm in the mood for those sorts of stories, so I'm glad that I picked it up. We'll see if I end up liking it. We also have Sorrowland, which I think is very much a story with a lot of commentary, and it's not fantasy in the traditional sense. I think it has a lot to do with race, and it's kind of like alternate history almost. I don't know too much about this one. I have heard really good things from what I have seen. Not as heavy, we have These Hollow Vows. This is another one I got in a subscription box, and it sounds kind of like a lot of your love story fae type of stories. It'll probably be a good one to pick up between some of the heavier ones. We also have Our Violent End. This one and Rule of Wolves that I mentioned earlier. They are sequels, so there are a couple of the exceptions where I'm picking up a sequel instead of a first book or a standalone, but that's because I've already read the first books, and I enjoyed the first book well enough. It was interesting, and it was a lot gorier than I was expecting. The first one is kind of a mashup of West Side Story and Romeo and Juliet, which is, already one is kind of inspired by the other, and I thought it was very interesting, and I definitely wanted to pick up the sequel, so I'm glad it made the list. Next, we have The Ones We're Meant to Find. I have been wanting to pick this one up for so long, and it sounds really abstract and kind of strange, and I hear that it is really beautiful, but kind of up for interpretation. I really like Descendant of the Crane by the same author, and I'm excited to read this one. I think I've seen that it's going to be read in schools now also. I'm ready for something powerful, but also maybe a little different. It just sounds like it's very unique. I don't really know a whole lot about it. It follows two sisters and one of them goes missing, and I don't really know much else besides that. Next up, we have The Inheritance of Orcadia Divina, which is a story following a family after the matriarch has died. I believe it's more so rooted in our own world and not super fantastical. We also have Malice, not by John Gwynne, a different Malice, which I think is another retelling. I don't know a whole lot about this one, but I've not seen a whole lot about this one. We also have Master of Jinn. I'm only really familiar with this one because I have some friends here on BookTube who really like one of this author's other works, so I've kind of seen them pick this one up. I think his other works are a lot shorter, and this is one of his first ones that's longer. Don't quote me on that. That might not be accurate, but I've heard mixed things, but I'm still really excited about this one. We also have House of Hollow. I believe this is a YA horror fantasy. I'm surprised. Now, I have a question. I don't actually know. If a YA book is horror, does it not get put in the horror bracket of the Goodreads nominations? Does it always end up in fantasy, or would it YA fantasy, or would it end up sometimes in YA fiction? I've heard that whenever we have YA historical fiction, that doesn't end up in the historical fiction category. It's going to end up in YA fiction. Anyway, there's a lot of different aspects of the Goodreads nominations that I'm not super clear on. But anyway, I think this one is a YA horror. Another one that's a sequel would be The Sky Beyond the Storm, or A Sky Beyond the Storm, which is the last book in the An Ember in the Ashes series by Salvatore. I've been wanting to pick this up for quite a while. I was surprised it was on the list. Did it come out at the end of last year? I think they're trying to do a better job of books that come out at the end of one year still having them on the list, but maybe I'm incorrect about that. I'm wondering if something like Cytonic and The Bone Shard Emperor, which are coming out right after these nominations were announced, I wonder if those will appear next year. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Not gonna lie, a book I wasn't that keen on reading because it just didn't sound like my thing would be Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune, but I am planning on picking that one up. It sounds not my usual. I mean, it's one of those stories where I guess it falls under the umbrella of fantasy because it's definitely fantastical, but it's not my usual fantasy. There's not, from what I understand, a bunch of swords and magic users and things like that. I think it follows a man who dies but has a chance to come back and live one more week or something like that. And I'm sure it's going to be heartwarming and charming because that's what I've heard about his works. But I don't know. It's like the other one on this list that I mentioned, A Witch's Heart, where I'm like, I don't know. That's the list of books that I'm hoping to get to. I know it's a lot. But I'm kind of hoping that because it's the holidays, I don't know, it's going to be colder. And it's, like I said, mental health, emotional well-being. I think I'm doing so much better. I've been having so much fun reading recently. So I'm so excited. Like so many of these, I'm like, can I just start this now? So anyway, let me know what books you're hoping to get around to before the end of the year. If there's any that you feel were snubbed and didn't make the list of nominations and you feel like they should have, let me know what those are. But anyway, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye.